Welcome, and thank you for attending the State Board of Chiropractic Examiners stakeholder meeting via webinar today. The date is March 3rd, 2023, and the time is 9:30 a.m. Before we get started, we would like to introduce the staff members from the Division of Professions and Occupations that are present. My name is Darcy Magnuson, and I'm a regulatory analyst with the division. Also attending is Yukon Morford, Program Director. Due to concerns surrounding COVID-19, the division has transitioned to a platform that is 100% virtual, and we appreciate your flexibility. As many of you have been to DORA stakeholder meetings before, we would like to reiterate the importance of your comments today. DORA makes decisions every day that may affect your life and your business, so your input is vital in the rulemaking process. Throughout this process, our goal is to create regulations that clarify and explain legislation, ensure minimum competency to enter and continue to practice, and provide only what is absolutely necessary for consumer protection without creating unnecessary barriers to the marketplace. Your input will be part of the information that goes to the board as it considers adopting revisions to the rules. More specifically today, and we'll get into this a little bit more before we look at the rules, we will be discussing multiple proposed changes to the board's rules pursuant to the rule review mandated by section 24.103.3 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. The purpose of the rule review is to assess the continuing need, appropriateness, and cost-effectiveness of the rules to determine if they should be continued in their current form, modified, or repealed. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the board's website by the close of business on Monday. As the stakeholder meeting is held solely by webinar, once we get into the rules, we ask that you raise your hand by using the hand icon if you would like to speak, and we will unmute your line so you'll be heard by everyone, or you can type your comments in the Q&A section and we will read them out loud for the recording. Before we start taking comments, we ask that anyone who is providing comments to please state your name and the name of the organization that you represent, if any. Feel free to provide either general comments on the rule changes or specific comments on the proposed language. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 to 5 minutes and try not to repeat something that was already said. Stating you're in full agreement with someone else works just fine and will be noted. If you are using the audio through your computer, please remember to put any phones on vibrate or turn them off. And whether you are using computer or phone audio, try to keep background noises to a minimum when speaking. So just a quick overview, show my screen, of the rule review process. So we're at the beginning of the process. The board reviewed, the board hasn't reviewed the rules yet, but did have an overview of what the process is going to look like at its last meeting. So the next steps are to get stakeholder feedback, which is why we're here today. And then we'll talk about the proposed timeline and go over the rule review criteria here quickly, and then we'll jump into the rules. So this is what the board is going to be considering. These are all of the factors that are listed in statute and what the board will be looking at when comparing its current rules and deciding whether any of the rules should be modified, repealed, or any other changes should be made based on these factors. So that's the underlying purpose of the rule review. I'm not going to stay here too long. This information is also included in the statute and also in the notice that was sent out for today's meeting. And then as far as the timeline is concerned, so from here, today's the first stakeholder meeting. The board will review the proposed changes during its March 16th meeting and decide whether to make any additional changes. And then we'll have another stakeholder meeting on April 7th based on the board's feedback. And as of right now, the permanent rulemaking hearing is tentatively scheduled for May 25th, 2023. That may or may not need to be moved, but the goal is that we will have it in May. As always, any information regarding rulemaking and stakeholder feedback engagement is always posted on the board's website under the public notices tab. And so you can access the draft rules there. You can also access the written comments that we've received. We update that link on the website as we receive them. So it is live and you can check back to see if we've received any additional comments. And then that's also where we'll post the recording from today's meeting. Additionally, you can provide written comments or ask questions or anything like that to the email address that was provided on today's notice. So that is an overview of what we're looking at. And now we will take a look at the draft rules. Okay. So I'm going to just walk through the proposed changes. They're fairly straightforward. I don't see raised hands, so we'll go through the proposed changes first and then go back to take feedback. But just in general, so the first updates here, these proposed added new rules 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and 1.4, which could be definitions if the board wanted to add any definitions into rule to clarify the statute. These proposed new rules are to make the board's rules be in compliance with the Secretary of State's styling manual. They're also good, I think, for the public to see the board's statutory authority to create the rules, the scope and purpose of the rules, and the applicability right at the beginning of the rules. So that's why those are recommended additional rules. The other changes that you'll see throughout, so just so you're aware, what I like to do during the rule review process to help the board is I like to add into the comments the statute so that the board can see the statute next to the rule. This is helpful for a number of reasons, but one of the main reasons why it's helpful is because then we can see if the statute conflicts with the rule, because if it does, then that's problematic. Or if the statute is duplicated within rule, one of the things that the board should be considering during this rule review is to remove any duplications of statute in rule because it's not necessary. So that's why you'll see in the comments here the statute on the side to help the board and also to help you as stakeholders. Of course, when the rules get adopted, if the board chooses to adopt the changes, we'll delete all those comments. Under each rule, I've also added in the statutory authority, again, to make it clear so that you can see the legal basis for the board adopting each of these rules. So you'll see that added paragraph there. And that's consistent throughout. The other thing I've done is just formatting more than anything, but making these capitalized, the titles capitalized, because that's consistent with other rules throughout the division. So here you can see this is just the statute so that the board can see it. I'll stop on any comments where I had recommendations to the board. So for example, here you can see that this particular subsection duplicates the statute, and I included the statute in there. So my recommendation to the board is to delete the duplicated language. And that's a decision that the board will make at its meeting in March. And then of course we'll bring their changes back to stakeholders. So here again, comparing statute to rule, this reporting requirement generally in the division is 30 days, but the statute for malpractice judgments and then other reporting is 60 days. So we can't conflict with statute. So that's why I added the statute in there. But you can see here, I don't believe, and we'll check with the Attorney General's office, but to be consistent with other boards and programs throughout the division, recommended that this is changed to 30. Again, also just general cleanup, taking out repealed rule language that's not relevant anymore. And I'm sorry for the quick scrolling, but it's fairly straightforward. And like I said, these draft rules are posted or will be posted on the board's website. Were sent out to stakeholders, so you can take a closer look. See if there's anything else. So the rest of these appear to just be the added paragraphs with the statutory authority. Just looking for any other comments on the sides to see if there's anything else I wanted to flag. This particular rule is a emergency rule. The board will not be making any changes to those. Same with this, is also an emergency rule. And I think that takes us to the end. So these are the appendices that correspond with the rules that we just went through. So at this point in time, if anyone who is participating, we have a couple of people online. If you would like to provide feedback, now's your chance to do that. Like I mentioned, you can also provide written feedback as well. And we do post that on the board's website under the public notices tab as we receive it. And then that information will all go to the board prior to its review of the draft changes on March 16th. So we'll pause here. Any questions, comments, feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute your line, or you can type into the Q&A. We'll wait a couple more minutes until 9:45, and if we don't have any raised hands, then I will go over the next steps again, and we can wrap up the meeting. Okay, so it is 9:45 and we don't have any raised hands. So we will talk about next steps again and then conclude. Thank you for participating in today's meeting. As part of this collaborative process, all comments and program recommendations will be provided to the board for review before the next meeting on March 16th, 2023. Then any additional rule revisions from the board will be presented to stakeholders at the next stakeholder meeting, which is scheduled for April 7th, 2023. The board will deliberate on the final version of the rules at the permanent rulemaking hearing. Stakeholders also have an opportunity to testify before the board at that hearing, and that's tentatively scheduled for May 25th, 2023. Like I mentioned earlier, all information is included on the board's website under the Public Notices tab. It's also emailed out to stakeholders and licensees in advance of the stakeholder meetings and rulemaking hearings. And that concludes this stakeholder meeting. Thank you again for your participation, and we are going to end the webinar now.